Last week's bombings continue to affect all facets of life, including the arts. Over the last week and a half, there have been a flood of cancellations and postponed shows. There's an economic impact and a psychological one, too, as arts organizations contend with audiences reluctant to laugh again, attend a very public concert, or sit through a harrowing drama when it's already unfolding in real life. For more now, I'm joined by Peterson, the Executive Director of Arts Boston, and our own arts editor, Bowen. Welcome. Catherine, did the arts community talk to each other last week or this week about what they were going to do, or did people kind of like make their own decisions on the fly?
We were in constant contact with each other and conversation about what felt appropriate, and folks made their own decision about Tuesday, the 16th, the day after the bombings, where some folks felt that they needed to give themselves a chance to deal with the recovery, and other performances went on, and that was totally appropriate. Of course, Friday, everybody in Cambridge, Boston, and Watertown, they all canceled.
Yeah, well, they had to. I mean, they were still obeying the shelter-in-place order.
Right.
But I mean, some of the big shows like Book of Mormon and those, I mean, I know that didn't play on Friday, but did they play all week, do you know?
They did, yes. And they had full houses, and from the people I know who were there, they had very happy houses of people who were glad to have a chance to get out and to have a chance to be with their friends and family for a while. What
about the museums, Jared? I know they let some free admission this week, but did they close at all? Did they?
They did. I mean, obviously, everybody had to close on Friday, and I think they all made the decision. I think the day after the bombings, the MFA closed, but the 16th they were back open. Was that the day? I'm losing my time.
15th was Marathon Day.
Right. So, so the first day they were back open, they opened free of charge. And they told me, I talked to them today, they had a number of visitors. And it was interesting. They found a lot of people were going to the Impressionist galleries and looking at paintings that typically can be a little bit more soothing and calming. And they saw a lot of people in the museum who were wearing running jackets. But both the ICA and the Gardner Museum also offered days of free admission, knowing that for people willing to come into the city are already here, they had to have some sort of space of solace.
I mean, I have to say there's got to be a huge psychological impact, too. There was a concert I was supposed to go to last week, Fleetwood Mac. I mean, I couldn't have gone to that. I mean, the thing hadn't come to an end yet, but, I mean, a lot of people, I'm sure, would feel the way I do. It's just, like, not appropriate. There's nothing celebratory. You know.
People have had different reactions, and I think that we need to allow ourselves to have those reactions. I have been having your reaction, quite frankly, and when I went to the interfaith service last Thursday with Mayor and the Governor and the President and had the chance to hear Yo-Yo Ma play Bach and to hear the Boston Children's Chorus, I realized that music had something to say to me and to provide me with some solace. And 2 days later on Saturday, I felt okay taking my mom, who's 88 and was having a hard time dealing with stuff, to Two Gentlemen of Verona, the musical version at Emerson Stage with the college kids. And it was a packed house. There were a lot of college kids, and it felt very joyous and appropriate.
What about the symphony? That's a good point. Did they lose any programs this year? Because they usually have big ones on Thursday and Saturday nights.
Well, I know they canceled at least one concert, and I think that this is it's something of a difficult subject to talk about. I know there is some conversation in the arts community about profit margins are very small and they're very slight, and you only have a short run. And between the blizzard this year, when a lot of people had to cancel, that was over a weekend when you have your biggest attendance, and now the cancellations we had this week, or last week rather, especially on Friday, there are a lot of companies that I think are really struggling. I talked to the Huntington today. They told me they've lost about $29,000 in ticket sales. But they also are very cognizant of, this is the reality of what's happened, and their losses are minimal when we're considering what else has been lost in this time period. But echoing both of you, I personally have found it very difficult, especially having been, going back to my news roots the last couple of weeks, to turn my attention to the arts. I went to my first film screening last night, and it's not something I wanted to do, to be very honest. It was just a sort of a frothy comedy, The Big Wedding, and I found myself laughing, and it felt a little bit better in the end. But I think it's definitely going to be a process for a lot of people to feel like you can participate in that way again.
We've seen two things. One is that, building on what Jared just mentioned about the canceled performances, especially Friday, a lot of arts organizations were very nimble in being able to offer additional performances.
Yeah.
New Rep in Watertown had their final season of their final weekend of Masterclass. And so they managed to add a performance on Sunday night, which was very well attended. And I know that other arts organizations are adding additional performances to make up for that for audiences who do want to attend. We have heard from the folks who are coming up to our Bostix booth at Faneuil Hall. Copley Square has been closed until tomorrow. We're reopening. That they do want to be able to go with their families. And last week was school vacation week for so many families, which made the gesture of the MFA and the ICA and the Gardner opening their doors free all the more meaningful because those families could enjoy time together.
Anybody nervous about security, Jared? Have you talked to anybody about that?
I think that everybody's mindful of it, and I think that people are taking precautions. I get the sense, though, there aren't extraordinary measures. And it's funny because Catherine and I, coincidentally, were standing next to each other at the moment of silence the other day, and we were on the corner of Berkeley and Boylston where that memorial was. And I was a little bit concerned, I have to say, because I thought, here's another very large crowd gathered. I didn't see any authorities, no bomb-sniffing dogs. So being out and outside in a public space gave me pause. But going to a movie theater last night or going to a theater, as I will over this weekend, I don't think about it at all.
Well, however, you've lived in Aurora, California, in Colorado, you'd probably think the other way around.
Right.
Because
we're conditioned at this point.
You're conditioned to me because I was walking down the street the other day and some tin can dropped or hit or something, and you're instantly on alert. So, I mean, inside versus outside is. So, will any of the arts organizations change their programs or their content at all, given what this, or they plan so far in ahead?
They're going to be cognizant of it, and people are very sensitive to how people in Boston are feeling. So I know people are looking at what the content of their presentations are, and they will be sensitive. At the same time, we are seeing that people do want to be able to have that space where they can be contemplative, where they can laugh, when they can feel safe about feeling things that they perhaps can't put into words. And that's the gift of theater, is being able to tell stories. That's the gift of music, being able to have that space to express emotions. So the arts are here to help us heal.
Yeah, I had that same sense even last night. We're going to go and see something manifested on stage that maybe we can't necessarily work through right now, conflict or anger, or in my case last night, a romantic comedy, have somebody make me laugh. And I think that is definitely the value of the arts. Or go to a museum or a symphony concert and just listen to the music and try to feel right again in some capacity.
I mean, the arts always have to be, they have to be cautious about what kinds of things they make humorous or dramatize, and we saw some dialing back right after the Newtown shootings, and there might be some of that.
My favorite thing that I heard last week was from Wheelock Family Theater, who on Wednesday got up in the morning and they said, our job today is to help 600 kids laugh and dance.
Actually, I have to say that Artists for Humanity is having their big gala this weekend, and they were very concerned, and this benefits kids making art, and they were concerned about going forward. They started having calls saying, let's go forward. The kids said, we need to make art, we need to do this, and they've designed all these great buttons for the event.
That's great. I know there's a lot of galas still taking place this weekend. All right, Catherine Peterson, Jared Bowen, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, that is it for Greater Boston. Tomorrow we'll have more on the latest developments in the marathon bombing. And here's Adam Riley again with a look at what's in store for Beat the Press.
Emily, this week we're going to have a special Beat the Press looking at media coverage of the Boston Marathon bombings. We'll talk about why this New York Post cover is still generating controversy and why other news organizations are being praised for their terrific coverage. The good, the bad, and the ugly this Friday on Beat the Press.
Thanks, Adam. We leave you now with a look at James Taylor's performance at today's memorial service for slain MIT officer Sean Collier. I'm Emily Rooney. Good night.
Oh, father and mother and sister and brother, if it feels nice, don't think twice. Just shower the people you love with love. Show them the way things are going to turn out right.